So what we want to find, so we're looking for a value of x in which the sine of that x is equal to negative 0.5. And you're suggesting that 1x is equal to negative 30. Okay. $150. Another one is 210. Another one is 300. So we need at least 4. Pag 380 plus 300 plus 180, that will be in the second quadrant. $570. How did you get the 570?
360 plus 180 plus 30.
Plus 30. Parang ang complex na. 570. We have to check that. Okay. But what led you to think that the first angle is negative 30? Because the idea may be coming from that first answer. Why is it negative 30? It's clockwise. And what is it that we know before? We know that. Why not 60? Why not 45? Okay, so I think we have to start with that. Sine of 30 is equal to 1/2. So all the angles that we need are based on the reference angle 30 degrees. But not all angles whose reference angle is 30 will be accepted, because we have to consider that the sign that we want right now is no longer positive, but it's negative 1/2. And if we combine the concept of the location where the sign is negative, the sign is negative only under quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. And all we have to do is to find all the angles with terminal side on that green lines with reference angle equals 30. So you're correct to say that one of the angles is negative 30 if negative angles are allowed. I heard a 150 earlier, but maybe the correct one should be this one. That's negative 150. Okay, now suppose we limit the answers to positive numbers. Then 210 came from 0 up to this terminal side, that's 180 plus the reference angle 30. So 210. And then you got the 300, it's the opposite of the negative 30, right? So if you do the counterclockwise direction, you will get 300 as one of the answers. And let's check your suggestion 570. This came from
360, so nag-rotate na 4, plus 180, plus 30.
Okay, so 360
plus 180,
plus 180 plus 30. Which is correct. Diba? Co-terminal angle. Yes?
B30, B300, kasi it should be on the x-axis.
300. Okay, we have to correct something. The reference angle with 30 on the fourth quadrant should not be 300, but it should be 330. So this one, we have to change this 330 kasi the reference angle of 300 is 60. So it must be 330 degrees. Okay, so i-correct lang natin yon. Okay, but as the problem suggested, we just want to find at least 4. Do you think we can have more than 4?
Yes.
How many more answers can we get?
Infinity kasi it adds up.
Okay, infinity. There is no limitation, there is no restriction in the x. We can just add 360 to every angle and then we can have a new answer. Okay? So, again, this is not the first time that you are working with equations. You have seen problems on this type in which you restrict the answer to from 0 to 360. But normally we just want the angles between 0 and 360. Okay, but if we have unlimited values, then it could go to infinite number of solutions. Okay. So, what if
Negative. Kasi negative 1. Oh. 1 has to be negative.
so suppose we have tangent theta is negative 1.
That's to make either quadrant or quadrant 4. Kasi pag 1 plus 3.
Okay, let's start with the idea. So I think you're sharing the right solution now. So can you share it to the whole class? What is our guiding value?
Guiding value is 45.
45. Why did you choose 45 degrees as the reference angle?
Because tan 45 is equal to
Okay, so first, we know that tangent 45 is equal to 1. So we can do this whenever the value of the tangent or the sine or the cosine is a special number because we can easily get the value without the use of a calculator, such as 30, 460, and so on. Okay, but every time we do this, it's not automatically the answer will be 45. We have to make use of, well, the given problem is it must be negative 1. Okay, so we have to locate where the tangent is negative. Under which quadrant from 0 to 360 is tangent negative?
2 and 4.
Okay, it could be in the second or it can be in the fourth quadrant. So all we have to do is to find, so this is like the alpha. We have to find all the angles from 0 to 360 in which the reference angle is 45, where alpha is the reference angle. So what is our angle in the second quadrant?
225.
So this angle must be
135.
135. The first angle is 135. And then the angle in the fourth quadrant must be 315. So the other angle, so if you start from 0 all the way to the terminal side, the white line, then you have the second answer, which is 315. Okay, so we conclude by saying that theta must be equal to 135 or it could be 315. Okay, for angles between 0 and 360. Okay, so we have seen already two equations in which the process is similar. Okay, like we always have to find what is a reference angle, is it a special angle, and so on. If it's not a special angle, then we have to make use of the calculator, okay, to help us find the values. Okay, next. So you got the 45 from, what did you do? So 2 sine squared theta is equal to 1. That's plus 1 and plus 1 on both sides. Divided by 2. And that means sine squared theta must be equal to 1/2.
Square root.
And then take the square root. The sine theta, you have to be careful with this. It should be,
Square root of 2 over 2.
and not just positive square root of 2 over 2. You're coming from a square, plus minus. There are always two values. Okay? But the signs right now are not that important. This is what we need. It's a special value. And the angle, the acute angle that will give us square root of 2 over 2 is 45. Right? So our reference angle must be 45. So we could break down the sine theta into square root of 2 over 2, the positive, and the sine theta in which it is negative square root of 2 over 2. From 0 to 2 pi, there are two values in which the sine theta is square root of 2 over 2. First, what is the first one?
45.
45. Immediately it must be the 45. Where else is the sine theta equals to a positive number? Yeah, the second answer is 135 because
Positive sign.
diba second quadrant. Okay, reference angle 45, but the actual angle is from 0 up to the terminal side. So that's the 135. Okay, this one. Then we go to the second equation. Sine theta is equal to negative square root of 2 over 2. This time, we consider which quadrants? 3 and 4. So the first angle must have a 45-degree reference angle. So is the second angle. So all we have to do is to find those angles. 225 and 350. Okay, so all in all, combining all these answers, theta must be equal to 135. We have 45, we have 225, and then 315. But this is not yet the final answer. Why? Okay, in the given, it was mentioned that the angle should be between 0 and 2 pi. So you need to convert each answer into radian measure. So it's a skill that you should know. Like, how do we convert 45 degrees?
360. Divide 360. Multiply by pi over 360. Wait, pi over 180.
Pi over 180. So let's start with 45. The conversion factor is pi over 180 because pi and 180 are equivalent. Okay? So if we simplify this, 45, there are 4 45s in 180. So this must be pi over 4. So that's the first one. From there, you can actually just count the pi over 4, but you can do it like the same process times pi over 180. If you reduce 135 over 180, how many 45 in 135?
3/4.
So 3/4. So 3 from 135 and 4 from 180. And then next is 225. 5 pi over 4 because there are 5 in the 225 and 4 in the 180. And the last angle is 315.
7/4.
So times pi over 180. And this is equal to 7 pi over 4. You can also get the angles by counting using the pi over 4. Okay. So finally, we have theta must be equal to, the first is pi over 4. 3 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, and 7 pi over 4. And that is our final answer. Any question? Is it clear? Okay. So suppose we have number 4, cosine of x is equal to negative 0.71. So negative 0.71 is not a special value. It will not come from 45, 30, or 60. Even remember the quadrantal angles? The 0, 90, 180, 270. Okay, you will not get 0.71 or negative 0.71 from those angles. So when you encounter an equation like this, what you need to do is to use the inverse functions. Okay, so cosine inverse of negative 0.71. Can you do that?
135.24 degrees.
135.
0.24
0.24. Let's limit it to 2 decimal places. Okay, just make sure that your calculator is set to degrees. Okay, the first number that the calculator will give you will be one of the answers. So this is not the only answer. Okay, in most cases we will have 2. Okay. By the way, this is between 0 to 360. So 135 is between 0 to 360, or 0 and 360. If we plot the 135, 135 is under the second quadrant, correct? Okay, so it is here. So when cosine x is equal to negative 0.71, it is telling us that the value is negative. So we have to identify what another quadrant will give us a cosine equals to a negative number. Quadrant 3. So that is where we are going to find the next answer. Now, the only thing that is relating these two is that they have the same reference angle. So if you will find the reference angle of the 135.24 degrees, then that's the same angle that you will use to find the next answer. But what is our reference angle? How do you find it?
Subtract it by 180.
Okay, so from 180 degrees, we have to subtract 135.24 degrees. 44.77. So meaning to say, our second answer is 180. What should I do? Plus the reference angle 44.77 degrees. And the second answer is 224.77. Therefore, x is equal to 135.24 degrees, and the second one is 224.77 degrees. Okay, so you have to make use of the inverse functions. If it's sine, then you use sine inverse. If it's tangent, you use tangent inverse. Okay? Questions before we go to the exercises? Anyway, you can ask me questions while you're doing it. Okay, so the set is here. So the next one is, let's name that as example number 5. Tangent x is equal to negative 2. So x must be equal to, before we get that number, let us show how we should get so that the solution is complete. From tangent x equals negative 2, it will transform into tangent inverse of negative 2, and using your calculator you obtain negative 63.44. Okay, now this is not part of the answer. Why?
That's not a part of 0 to 360.
Okay, so because the question said it must be from 0 to 360. But this will give us something. So what should be our first answer then? How can we make this, or how can we make use of this so that we can find the answers? Okay, 180 minus that number. Okay, because the tangent is negative where? Quadrant 2 and quadrant 4. And that 63.44 will give us the reference angle equal to 63.44. That's why you said to get the first answer, go back by 63.44. So going back means 180 minus 63.44. And what is the answer? 116.57. Rounded off in the value. Okay. And then to find the angle in the fourth quadrant, same thing. We have to make use of that reference angle. 360 minus 63.44 degrees. And this is equal to 296. 296. Okay, 296.56 degrees. Okay, so these are our answers. So x must be 116.57 degrees and 296.56 degrees.